Mr. Arya, if you're going to run for prime minister, I mean, you have to know that the French language matters, and the French it matters in Quebec.
Trust me.
Profoundly.
Parties are more than just the Constitution, and we are going to be showing you why that is and why the Liberals are able to do what they did. We put a post up on Twitter/X. It's still Twitter for me. I don't care. As soon as I stop typing in TWI and it stops resolving to X, then maybe I'll change. But
this URL cannot be found.
Yeah, exactly. So we put up a post on X from our weekly live stream a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. Exactly 2 weeks ago tonight.
And we showed the CBC interview with Chandra Arya, and we talked about that this probably wouldn't go well because he was essentially telling everybody in Quebec, no, your language doesn't matter. Your language doesn't matter. You just care about, okay, so you're going to completely disavow 400 years of culture that's in Quebec. Now, whether you agree with that culture or not is a separate issue. But everybody knows that the French language is of paramount importance to Quebec. They have laws.
Yeah, they have language laws.
They have language police.
To help protect that language and to help promote that language.
Right.
So it definitely matters. And to get up on national television and tell the audience that, no, it doesn't matter. Again, the sheer effing hubris.
Yeah, there's a separate debate whether or not, they go too far or not. That's not the issue. The issue is it is a fact that language is of paramount importance in Quebec. So, now we got much larger response to that tweet than we expected. And a lot of people were saying, well, they can't do that. And they can't just disqualify him because he doesn't speak French. And my response was, yes, they can. And a lot of people were trying to show, sections of the Constitution where it doesn't say that they can do that. Well, here's the thing, folks. Parties are more than just the Constitution, and we are going to be showing you why that is and why the Liberals are able to do what they did. So, let's take a look. This is on the Liberal Party of Canada's website, and this is where they keep their documents pertaining to the party. So on the left, you'll see a bunch of different documents relating to bylaws, and on the right, you will see a bunch of documents relating to policy. So the first document on the left is the Constitution of the Liberal Party of Canada. Some of you may have read all of it, parts of it, pieces of it. But what we're most interested in is, if you look down a little bit, we are interested in national leadership rules. And this is what many people online have not read. This is the National Leadership Rules cover page, and it essentially starts taking you through what is in this document and what it's entailing. On page, I believe it's 7, there's a whole bunch of paragraphs with a bunch of text in here. Now this is where we get into the interesting facets of this. Paragraph C says, the National President, the National Director, the co-chairs of the Leadership Vote Committee, co-chairs of the Leadership Expenses Committee, and the Chief Electoral Officer, referred to hereon as the reviewers, shall each review each application for registration with such assistance from party staff as they may from time to time require. In conducting such review, the following shall apply. Subsection 2. Unless a prospective leadership contestant has failed to satisfy the mandatory criteria of this bylaw or has demonstrated, in the view of the reviewers, in their sole and unfettered discretion, manifest unfitness of the office of leader of the Liberal Party, the reviewers shall approve such candidate as a leadership contestant within 10 days of receipt of such application and shall notify the Chief Electoral Officer accordingly. You'll notice that it says manifest unfitness for the office of leader party. We will continue, and I will explain this shortly after. Subsection 3. In the event that a majority of the reviewers determine in their sole and unfettered discretion that a prospective candidate has not satisfied the mandatory criteria of this bylaw or has demonstrated due to public statements, past improper conduct, a lack of commitment to democracy, or other reputational or legal jeopardy. Let me read the first one again. Due to public statements that a prospective candidate is manifestly unfit for the office of the leader of party, they shall advise such leadership contestant for their reasons and shall consider any response the leadership contestant may have in making a final determination of eligibility here under.
So what does that mean? That means that a decision was made by the board who is in charge of approving and reviewing the leadership applications, and they told Chandra Arya, "You're not approved. This is exactly why." He may or may not have told them something in return, like, well, I disagree because XYZ, or, it's because of this, whatever. There may have been some back and forth. There may not have. But he's really the only person that knows for sure what is the reason that he is disqualified.
Now, we got a clue, and the clue was in a National Post article a little more than a week ago. Let's take a look at that. Leadership candidate French comments prompt a stern lecture from Quebec Liberals. Ottawa. Liberal MP Chandra Arya's leadership campaign is barely 1 week old, but he's already being scolded by his own colleagues for saying that Quebecers don't care if the Prime Minister speaks French. Arya, who does not speak French and does not intend to learn it, I'll repeat that one, and does not intend to learn it, has argued that Canadians and Quebecers don't care which language their leader speaks as long as their core concerns, namely prosperity, the economy, and affordability, are addressed. National Post has learned that during a Liberal Quebec caucus meeting on Wednesday morning, Arya's comments over the week were so widely scorned among attendees that the Liberals' Quebec Lieutenant Jean-Yves Duclos called Arya later in the day to relay his caucus mate's disappointment. But Arya's repeated comments about Quebecers not caring if the Prime Minister speaks French was no laughing matter for Quebec's pundit class and Liberal Quebec MPs. In a statement, Duclos spokesperson Guillaume Bertrand said that Quebec caucus, many of whom have publicly called for the next Liberal leader to be bilingual, determined during the meeting that someone should speak quote-unquote directly to Arya to share their frustration. Quote, Mr. Duclos relayed many of the concerns expressed by his Quebec caucus colleagues and the disappointment felt by his colleagues and Liberal members after comments made by Minister Arya, notably that French was not important for Quebecers, end quote, Duclos' spokesperson said in a statement. Quote, MP Arya is not interested in addressing numerous misinterpretations on his stand on Canada's both official languages, end quote, his leadership campaign wrote in a statement attributable to Arya.
Now, we don't have the links in the description yet. We will put them in later this evening once the live stream is done. But if you want to check out that article, I have just pinned it at the top of the chat.
So, here's a couple of theories that we have. So I think the most obvious theory is that it wasn't the fact that Arya couldn't speak French. It was the fact that he essentially disparaged the entire province of Quebec
on national television.
On the Liberal propaganda machine, CBC. So that would be, I guess, in the Liberal view, a very bad look for the Liberal Party if they allowed this guy to continue to run. So based on their leadership bylaws and that first point where they determined that public statements made by Arya did not align and made him unfit to run, that was the criteria that they used. That's one possibility. Now, let's go back to the interview on CBC, because there's another theory that we have as well.
One of the solutions to foreign interference is seen as a foreign agent registry, but you sponsored a petition opposing a foreign agent registry. Your connections to India has been something that has come up, and the timeline here is important. September 2023, Justin Trudeau stood in the House of Commons and said he had credible evidence that agents of India may have been involved in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. In November of 2023, a U.S. indictment that was unsealed linked the Indian government to the Nijjar case. In May of 2024, the RCMP arrested 3 Indian nationals. An investigator said they believed there were ties to the Indian government. But then in August of 2024, you traveled to India and met with Narendra Modi. Why?
what's the issue there? I fully support what Prime Minister said on Niger or everything else. We are a sovereign country. We can't allow any foreign government or any foreigners to come and meddle in our domestic affairs. Same way as Canada does not meddle. The last year, I met 2 different prime ministers of 2 different countries. I met 2 foreign ministers of 2 different countries. The year before, I met presidents, prime minister, and ministers in so many different places. Just because I'm Hindu by religion and I happen to meet a Hindu prime minister, people are making an issue.
Well, no, I think it's because the agents of the Indian government have been credibly accused of playing a role in the murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. And I just wonder why, as a sitting parliamentarian of the government that made that allegation, and the caucus of a prime minister has been the target of a propaganda campaign by the Indian government to discredit him, you would go meet with him in that context. How's your French?
Nope.
No? No French?
No French.
Okay. The Liberal Party of Canada is the party of official bilingualism. It's going to be a tough one. I don't speak French either, so
The point is that whether the Quebecers or English Canadians, it's not the language that matters, it's what is that they deliver to them.
But the language matters very much in Quebec.
No. At the end of the day, Quebecers see who delivers what. We have English-speaking, French fluent prime minister for all the time. One of the things that matters to Quebecers are being a sovereign country, a sovereign republic.
Yeah.
And which prime minister has ever talked about that?
Mr. Arya, if you're going to run for prime minister, you have to know that the French language matters, and the French it matters in Quebec.
Trust me.
Profoundly.
Trust me. At the end of the day, for French Canadians and English Canadians, the matters most is that how their children and grandchildren are going to prosper in this country. That is the thing that matters.
Okay. So, one very serious theory, and I think a couple people have spoken about this, and there's some credibility in the theory based on that interview.
But again, we don't have proof.
We don't have any proof at all.
Right. So this is just a rumor that we have heard.
Yeah, this is not a fact, and we don't have...
so take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah, we don't have anything other than the CBC interview on this. But it could also be possible that one of the reasons that, or the reason that he was not permitted to run was because he could be one of the 11. There's a lot of weird things that they were talking about what he did, and if you watch the whole interview, I believe the CBC host's name is David. He talks to Chandra extensively about meeting with Modi, the Prime Minister of India, multiple times, and Chandra's just like, "What's the issue there?"
The fact that you don't see it's an issue that a backbencher would meet with the prime minister of a completely different country, and a country that's not really 100% friendly with us right now, like, you don't see that?
It's the same issue that we had with Han Dong meeting with the ambassador of Japan in the embassy.
No, it wasn't.
when he was a backbencher.
No, it was China, wasn't it?
Sorry, China.
Yeah.
In my head, it was China, and I said Japan. I don't know why. It's the same thing. Backbenchers have no business doing that. What business does a backbencher have meeting with the Prime Minister of India during a diplomatic scuffle between Canada and India?
Well, how many of their backbenchers and their parliament are coming to meet with our prime minister? You know what I mean? Like, the answer is zero, because
Right.
it should be zero, because it's very odd that one would do that.
Right. So that's interesting. That's a little more than interesting. Now, again, it's just rumor, but if that wasn't the reason, then the reason that the Liberals are using is that, sorry, you disparaged Quebec. You're done. We're not letting you run.
And that's the thing. They may not want the future prime minister to already be out of the gate alienating an entire province, right? So it may not have anything to do with the fact that he doesn't speak French, but it may have everything to do with the fact that he pretty much disparaged French-speaking people on national television before he could even run. And a lot of people are saying, well, why didn't they kick him out before, et cetera, et cetera. So they just had to hand in their application forms essentially for the job. What was it, the 22nd, which was
23rd.
Okay, so what was that, Wednesday? And again, this reviewing committee takes time to review it. And with that application that was submitted, $50,000 was also submitted, which the candidate then gets back if they're disqualified.
Right. So that's what happened. And a lot of people were saying online, oh, well, you know, Chandra could learn French, you know, later. You know, a lot of people do that. He didn't intend on learning it. He was basically, the stance he was taking, and he even said this elsewhere in the article, I speak Canadian. Canadian's not a language, sir. Canada speaks
English and French.
Yeah, one of two languages. And like it or not, that's what the Liberal Party requires. So there you go. And again, this isn't whether we agree with or not with the decision, but that's what the Liberal Party has in their rules.
But again, I'm wondering more if it wasn't the fact that he doesn't speak French as so much as the fact that he went on national television and said that people in Quebec don't care about their language. Like, how could you then have that person leading the country, including Quebec?
So, now, when it comes to the rest of the leadership race, I think everyone can see how this is lining up. You have Trudeau's whole team helping Carney behind the scenes, unofficially.
Including Telford and Butts.
Yeah, unofficially, even though they're like, oh, no, we can't. But here's the thing. They were specifically asked, are you allowed to help Carney? And they said no. That was the official answer from the Prime Minister's office. So if it's found out that they actually helped him, that's going to be the first scandal of Mark Carney's political career, and maybe the last. So we'll see what happens there. But everything is lining up that Carney is going to be anointed the leader.